Hello and welcome. Welcome to I think it's the fourth in the series of my Find Your Inner Goddess method videos to support you on a journey, whether you're working one-to-one with me or you're on a program. Either way, this is another one of the videos to help you to support your learning how to step into the drama, out of the drama triangle and into the Shiro's journey through the Find Your Inner Goddess method. So yes, this is the fourth video. It's a solar plexus video. Hopefully you've done the other videos, so stepping out the drama triangle, the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and now the fourth video is the solar plexus. So if you have the workbook, I hope you have the workbook. If you don't have the workbook, then I would stop this video. I would download the workbook, either print it off or use it on another laptop, and actually do those videos first before you join this, because otherwise this might just be useful in its own right, but would be better if you have watched the previous videos. So in your workbook you have the sections on the solar plexus. You have plenty of space to take notes or to write down any questions you want to ask me, which you can obviously contact me to ask. So let's just begin. Let's begin this video. Remember, you can pause at any time and take a break. Get yourself a cup of tea if you'd like, maybe some snacks. I think it might be 45 minutes. I'm not sure how long it will take, but definitely not more than an hour. So let us begin. All right. So there we are. Let's see if we can. There we go. Okay. So the Solar Plexus Masterclass. Let's move myself out of the way a little. All right, so the Solar Plexus Masterclass. In this masterclass, we explore the Solar Plexus chakra and personal power, how people-pleasing and weak boundaries form, the role of the nervous system in our behavior, reconnecting to gut instinct and inner authority, and embodying the warrior archetype. So the solar plexus chakra. The solar plexus chakra is the center of personal power. It relates to confidence and self-belief, identity and autonomy, healthy boundaries, motivation and action. And when balanced, we feel empowered, decisive and aligned with our truth. So the warrior archetype. The warrior represents healthy power. A balanced warrior protects their energy, acts with courage, responds rather than reacts, and stands firmly in her boundaries. This is not aggression, it is grounded, embodied strength. So signs of a blocked solar plexus. When this energy center is suppressed, we may experience people-pleasing, fear of conflict, self-doubt, difficulty making decisions, feeling controlled by others, and reclaiming power begins with awareness. So limiting beliefs. Many beliefs form early in life. My needs don't matter. I must keep everyone happy. It's safer to stay small, and conflict means rejection. These are just some of the beliefs that are often survival strategies created by the nervous system. There are many others, and if you have any others that come to mind that you feel could be added here, write them down in your notebook. What are your limiting beliefs? And just, maybe you want to pause the video to write them down and do so. And then we can unpack them together, especially if we are working one-to-one. So people pleasing, and that says the fawn response. So people pleasing is often a nervous system response. When we feel unsafe, the body may choose the fawn response. And this looks like appeasing others, avoiding conflict, prioritizing others' needs above your own, and seeking approval. This strategy once protected us, but may now limit our authenticity. So just have a think about maybe, when you've kind of fawned. And so there's fight, flight, freeze and fawn. And I think there are others. Fawn's kind of one that's been added in recent years to nervous system responses. But fawn is when we sort of, it's a little bit like, what's the expression I'm thinking? When you really want to say something else, but you feel like you need to just shrink yourself. Fawning is really, like you can see in the picture, really like kind of, you might not feel like you want to respond with fawning, but you kind of do that to stay safe. And that's what all nervous system responses are in essence. Even if we fight, even if we flight, even if we fawn, freeze, they're all responses. I will go through that in a moment actually and explain about why we behave in those ways, because at the end of the day they keep us safe, and that's why we've done it. So we mustn't give ourselves a hard time if we do fawn, or if we fight, or if we flight, if we take off. All these things are there to keep us safe. So boundaries. Healthy boundaries protect energy and well-being. I hope you like the Spice Girls. I was thinking, how can I show girls, maybe not in their private lives, have shown always at healthy boundaries. I know quite a few have been in situations in relationships that haven't had clear boundaries. But to the outside world, the girl power, being very clear about what they want and how they're going to get it, and making sure that they are like saying to girls, make sure that you respect yourself. So boundaries allow us to say no without guilt. Protect time and energy. Honor our needs. Build respectful relationships. Boundaries are an act of self-respect, not selfishness. And that's something that always gets skewed. Like when we set boundaries, other people feel indignant at our boundary setting. But when we create boundaries, we are creating the ability for us to say no, the ability for us to show up in the world where we feel safe. And this is always about safety, and it always comes back to safety, and it always comes back to feeling good in our bodies. And for so long, many women, as I've said in past videos, and I say again, we do not think about our boundaries. We do not think about ourselves. We put everyone before ourselves. So placing boundaries is really important for women, because we can then move through the world feeling safe, and creating a boundary can keep us safe. And we have that auric field, that boundary, that actual energetic boundary we can place around ourselves. So I always say, for the visceral, for the somatic practicing of this work, please go to YouTube, see my videos if you aren't already familiar. The Kundalini Yoga dance, stroke Goddess Chakra dance, depending on whether you've been doing it of late, just change the name, and the Awaken Your Inner Goddess, like being aware that your body is speaking to you all the time, and how you can actually start to create that energy in the body. And so we have to work on the physiological and the psychological. This is just working on that one layer of psychological understanding. So, gut instinct, and also please write some notes on each of these and go back through slowly as well. Like take your time and go back slowly and pause these slides, because if you just look at them for a while and you spend some time with them, then they're going to bring up other things. So if I'm moving too quickly, then please go back and spend some time looking at these, and maybe writing down some questions to ask me, things that you don't understand, things that you want unpacked a bit further. So everyone's at a different level when they come to these videos. Some will have lots of understanding and some people won't. So, you tailor make it. So you come back and you pause it and you write down some more questions maybe. So gut instinct and intuition. The gut is often called the body's second brain. We have, I can't remember how many nerve endings, but we have millions of nerve endings in the gut, and very similar to the brain, and that's why it's called the second brain, and that's why we should listen to our gut instinct. So your intuition communicates through sensations in the stomach, feelings of expansion or contraction. So the sensations in the subtle body signals. Let's have a look at the bottom. Can we get this one to come up a bit? No. Oh, let's go back. Oh, back, that way. No, we're going the wrong way, aren't we? Sorry. Let's go back. How do we go back? There we go. Sorry. Apologies. Right. At least you know what's coming. So yes, sensations in the stomach. So our gut instinct, those sensations, those nerve endings tell us when we're safe. So we override quite often those sensations in the stomach because we just don't listen to it. We listen to what the mind thinks. And so it's moving away from that mind and listening to the body, particularly listening to your gut. When you don't feel safe, when you need to address safety, listen to the first instinct is your gut instinct. You usually know whether this is a safe environment or not because your gut tells you, but you carry on anyway. So it takes a while when we've been through trauma, particularly to be able to listen to our gut instinct, because we override it because we're so used to disconnecting our mind from our body. And these things take time. There's no quick fix. It's just being aware. So again, it's noticing, witnessing, acknowledging without judgment, and just being aware. And the more we become aware, the more we embody these practices and these awarenesses. So feelings of expansion and contraction. So what does expansion mean and contraction? Getting bigger, getting smaller. We can feel the tightening. We can feel the bracing when we don't feel safe. Yeah, there's a bracing when we don't feel safe. And there's other subtle body signals that sometimes come into play. And they're not always contraction, and it's not always but subtle body signals can be, when you get that gut instinct, you might get the hairs on the end of your arms, sort of, also standing on end. That's what I want to say. You might get gurgling in your stomach. You might feel sick. You might feel nauseous from your stomach. Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes that can be difficult between, butterflies and excitement and fear. Sometimes they can be hard to distinguish, but in time you learn. So yeah, it's just introducing the concept, and through the embodiment practices, you're learning more as well, right? Sorry, I don't know what it said at the end of there. We'll have to find that later. Fire energy. So the solar plexus is associated with the energy and the element of fire. There we have the phoenix. I thought that was a good example of, the phoenix from the flame. It kind of that death and rebirth animal. The mythical phoenix. It dies in the fire and then comes out of the flames, and it dies and it comes out of the flames. And so this is fire energy, the warrior energy, being able to die and get back up again, So fire represents transformation, clarity, taking action, and personal power. When we reclaim this energy, we begin to move forward with courage. This really is that warrior, this fire energy. And fire really is burns away all that does not serve us, burns away everything that we no longer need in our lives. So fire energy is very action orientated, very much moving forward. So anger, a sacred rage. Now we are so afraid of being angry, right? As women, we're so afraid of being angry because we believe that anger is not allowed, and we don't hit anymore, do we? We don't hit other people. We don't even hit punch bags, right? So anger is something that we suppress, and when we suppress anger, like any other emotion, we're gonna be, suppressing it down into the lower chakras, and then it causes dis-ease in the body, and can cause us all sorts of issues. So healthy anger is anger, a sacred rage. I call it sacred rage, and I didn't coin the term, but I'm using that particular term because we still feel in the feminine that we can't use sacred rage. So sacred rage is where you can find a safe space to let out your anger. So we're not going to let it out at another human, but maybe it's put a punch bag, or come and do the chakra dance journey, the Kundalini yoga dance journey. We have space. We have a few minutes each day to move through that sacred rage, right? To physically get rid of that sacred rage by cutting, by punching, by pushing, by breathing. So healthy anger protects our boundaries. Right? So if we have a little bit of anger, it means that we have boundaries. When we don't feel anger, we don't know how to transmit anger into creating boundaries, then it just becomes sort of free-flowing anger, and it just becomes a mess, and we can't control. We don't have any boundaries of ourselves, let alone other people. Whereas if we have sacred rage, we can kind of learn how to dissipate that anger into creating boundaries, rather than taking out that anger and frustration on others. That's why we move. That's why we move through the anger. That's why we express our anger. We burn away our anger. We write things down. We burn it in fire. We have ritual. We have movement. Other ways of expressing ourselves. So it signals something is not aligned. So when we feel angry, it's like something is not aligned. Something has triggered us. Something has made us unhappy. Something has made us angry. And we only get angry when we're triggered. And that's a very interesting thing when we get triggered, because, there's lots of nuances of that. But something is not aligned. A boundary has been crossed. We get angry when a boundary has been crossed. So if you've set up clear boundaries, then they get crossed less often than if you don't have boundaries. Because if you don't have boundaries, there's nowhere to know where to cross. People don't know if they're crossing your boundaries unless you just blow up all the time because you haven't got any. And people who are really angry people, that's because they don't have clear boundaries for themselves and others, right? And that's why they're angry all the time. So action is needed. Action is a forward momentum. Anger, so action is a forward momentum, and we need anger sometimes to get us to do things sometimes. It can give us that impetus to take action on something. But sacred anger, sacred rage, look at her face, that's probably quite subtle. So I should have put a picture of Kat Shaw actually doing one of her sacred rage events, because when women gather and they sort of round fire and they just let out their rage and make sound, and that's probably a good picture to go here in the future, I feel. So when expressed safely, anger becomes a source of strength and clarity. So using that fire to become clear, to become focused, to know what, actually, I'm so angry by that situation, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to actually do something about it. And that's the clarity. Okay, so remember to write things down, take your time, pause where you need to. So discernment. What is discernment? So discernment is the ability to sense what is right for you. The discernment is the ability to sense what is right for you. It involves listening to your intuition. So intuition can be third eye or the gut. In this case, that is intuition coming from the gut. Listening to your intuition, recognizing red flags. What's a red flag? It can be a multitude of things. But red flags are hard to see when we have had trauma. Very hard to see. And we only sort of know they're there. We can see the behaviors of others towards us, but we don't take any notice because we override the red flags. So discernment is about being able to see what is a yes and what is a clear no, right? So honoring your values. What are your values? And when you know what your values are, then you have guidelines, right? And when you have guidelines, you can be more discerning. And I know, you're probably thinking, well, how do I create those guidelines? How do I create those values? Well, that's part of the journey that we're going on, right? This is where we introduce each part, and then we go further. And so when you start on your Shiro's journey, having understood this is where you get to practice in real time, in your own life. You get to really use these learnings, these teachings in real time. And the only way you're going to learn and create values and create discernment is by testing it out in reality, in relationship with other people. So choosing aligned relationships and opportunities. So when you become discerning, you do start to choose relationships and opportunities that you know in your gut instinct are right for you. And yes, that takes time to work out and work through. So the nervous system. So our nervous system constantly scans for safety. When the body feels safe, we can think clearly, connect authentically to others, express boundaries, and when we feel unsafe, survival responses take over. So, the bowls, the koshi bells, that's when we know that we are in safety. When our nervous systems are out of alignment, we use different modalities, but with me, that sound healing is one of those ways where we just bring the nervous system down into equilibrium. So the autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system has two main branches, and as you can see there, there's scales, and it's all about balance. So the sympathetic is fight or flight activation. And the parasympathetic is when we're in rest, digestion, and recovery. Both states are natural, and the balance is key. So when we are in fight or flight, and as we looked at earlier, there is fawn as well. When fight, flight, freeze as well, and fawn. And so fight and flight activation are the two main sympathetic, and it's odd because it says sympathetic. You'd think that was a para, but it's not. It's called sympathetic nervous system. That means that we, in order to stay safe, we have had a response. So if you think about the idea of thousands of years ago, this is always the story, the saber-toothed tiger is coming towards you, and you would either, you'd probably freeze or you'll freeze, but not everyone does. Or you may want to fight, or you might want to fly. So those are the three, I doubt you'd fawn. So those are the three things that we do if we're talking about saber-toothed tigers. Let's talk about more modern day. Let's be honest and talk about more modern day predators. And if we are being attacked physically, or in many cases, if there's, it could be sexually, and we are in a situation where we can often let the body respond. We have to let the body respond. The body does respond in its own way. So many times for women who've been through sexual trauma, they've had to actually freeze in order to stay safe, because the alternative to sexual abuse can feel like, well, if I don't do this, I could die. So when we feel like we could actually die, and that's the ultimate outcome of nervous system response, is that I think we always go with that benchmark of, well, we either do this or we die. Yeah. So that can often be the response. So we can either fight back, or we can freeze, or we can run away. And the parasympathetic, yes, rest, digest, and recovery. And so it's about, being, it's interesting, because the more I learn about the nervous system, we have to have these fight, flight, freeze, and fawn reactions in order to know when we're not in those states. And those states, as I said, they keep us safe. And so when we're in rest and digest, if we were always in rest and digest and we weren't on alert, then we could be killed, right? When you think about in animalistic terms, we can't always be relaxed and off guard, yeah? And that parasympathetic off guard relaxation, digestive space can be good, and that's why we need balance. We need balance, and we need to know when to switch on the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, and that's what essentially keeps us alive. Is moving between the two. What can happen though to women who have been traumatized, or humans, but we're talking about women here particularly, they can stay in one of the states of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Mostly fight, flight, or freeze. And that's when the body shuts down, that's when the body disassociates, that's when the body can no longer function very well. But I thought I would bring the autonomic nervous system in here at this point as just like a little taster of it. So, there's a lot more to it. It's quite complex, but it's just bringing in a little bit of understanding of the autonomic nervous system. As it says, both states are natural and balance is key. But yeah, I spend a lot of time supporting women who have been in free states, or like autoimmune disease can be debilitating and shuts the body down, and that's the way of the body being able to take care of itself. It's by shutting down. That's like an extreme freeze, and that's often called a dorsal response, where the body just shuts down and it's like you're out. So that's what we're always working on, with keeping the body moving between the two states naturally. All right, I will move on. Don't want to confuse you too much. So fight response. The fight response mobilizes energy. So healthy expression, standing up for yourself, protecting boundaries, and taking decisive action. And there you go, like punch states. So in Kundalini we do these punch states, and these are really good for you to feel like you're empowered, right? Freeze response occurs when the nervous system feels overwhelmed. Common experiences: feeling stuck, numbness, difficulty taking action. Understanding this response builds compassion for ourselves. That's really important. We must build compassion for ourselves, because we do all feel overwhelmed at times. We do sometimes feel stuck, some of us more than others. And it is hard to take action when we're in that state. So safety and regulation. The body must feel safe to access authentic power. So practices that support regulation: slow breathing, grounding awareness, being, outside in nature, being grounded, being away from the city and everything that brings. Body tracking, so being aware of what's going on in your body. Somatic practicing, gentle movement, Kundalini yoga dance, stroke goddess chakra dance. Always going to keep asking you to go to that. That is the signature piece for this work. But also other Kundalini yoga can be good, and other types of yoga. But they do say that somatic practicing, actual sort of intentional focusing on the body through the chakras, they say is, experts say, is more productive in this work for safety and regulation than yoga, because yoga can often be much about the asanas, the actual physical moves, and getting the physical moves right. As you know, I clearly don't teach it that way, because I teach Kundalini and I teach it in my way, and it's more about listening to your body to feel safe, and there is no wrong or right. Okay, moving on. Somatic practice, introception. So introception is where we track the body, where we start to listen to the body. And there she is sitting in a tree, getting grounded, being able to not be distracted by the outside world. And we begin, and we can place a hand on the body. So here we place a hand on your stomach. A somatic practice for introception. Place your hand on your stomach and just notice the temperature. Is it hot or cold? The movement of your breath. The subtle sensations in your stomach. This reconnects awareness to the solar plexus center. Very, very simple exercises can help you to track your body, to be back in your body, to feel that you are in a state of rest and digest. Just using introception, just being aware, very simply. So take your time with this. Read it again, maybe write some notes, or share with me, so that you can share with me in our group or one-to-one sessions together. So body tracking exercise. These are little examples of things you can do. So observe the sensations in the body. Ask yourself, what sensations are present? Do they shift when I breathe? Can I stay curious without judgment? And I always invite you just to breathe. You can hear my breath is quite laboured this evening. A bit stuffy-nosed. I always seem to do this either with a cold or hay fever. But just be aware of the sensations when you breathe. And the judgment piece is so important. Like, we give ourselves a really hard time. Like, should it be like this? Should it be like that? Am I breathing right? Am I present with my sensations in my body? There's no judgment. Like, there is no wrong or right. So always know that whatever answers come, there is no wrong or right. So boundary sensing practice. So notice the body's responsive to yes and no. Try saying yes and try saying no. Observe how your body responds differently. Very, very simple exercise. Yes. No. And so just observing, like, even the vocal tone, observing how you express with your body, what sensations are going inside, especially inside your gut. That's quite interesting. It felt quite butterfly-y to say yes, and excitement to say yes. And the no for me felt like no. So it just felt like a shutdown. It was more of a crunch in my gut. Okay? For you, it might be different. So write that down. Have a go. Embodied warrior posture. So there you can see in the picture. That is a warrior. There's warrior 1, there's warrior 2, but that's the first warrior pose. So practice that. She's got a bent front leg. She's aligned with her front leg. Her knee isn't over her foot. It's just in line with her foot. So straight line. She's reaching up with straight arms. She's leaning backwards and she's opening herself up. She's opening herself up to receive. So standing tall with feet on the ground. Practice relaxing your shoulders. Breathe deeply into the belly. Feel strength through the spine. This posture signals confidence to the nervous system. And doing it on top of a rock like that, fabulous. You know, she's really feeling empowered there. So you might now just want to just take some breaths. You might want to stop the video. You might want to go and get a cup of tea. You might just need to just stop it, for a moment. Notice your breath. Maybe you want to practice the embodied warrior posture. You might want to practice yes and no before you carry on. So integration, we're actually at the end now. So integration, reflection questions. What insight stood out today? Where do I need stronger boundaries? Where am I people pleasing? And what are my limiting beliefs? Can I begin to shift them in my body? What would my inner warrior choose differently? So it's really interesting, isn't it? These are, questions. It's all about writing things down. It's a mind process as well as a body process. So have a look at those questions. Feel into those questions. So the invitation, if this work resonates with you, the journey continues inside my signature program, where we explore embodiment, power and transformation in depth. And then I've given my website there, and you can look in my website under the Shiro's journey and the methodology, and it tells you all about the Find Your Inner Goddess method. If you haven't already seen it, I've also upgraded it if you've already, since the last videos. So you might want to, even if you're already a client of mine, go back and have a look on my website about the methodology as well, so that you get a clearer picture of what it is that you're moving through and why you're moving through it. Why do we move from survival to sovereignty? What is our purpose to move from survival to sovereignty, from the lower chakras to our crown, So if you want some further activations, check out my daily somatic practice, now called Kundalini Yoga Dance, on YouTube. And there's my YouTube address if you haven't already got it. I presume you already have if you're here at this point. But there you go. It's there again if you're watching this as an individual video. So I hope that that's been useful. I hope that you take your time. I think we actually did that pretty quickly today. So, take your time, stop when you need to. Please, prepare yourselves for these videos in whatever way you need to, smudge the room, create the space. As you see, I always create a space with flowers and my instruments and candle, and I smudge the room with sage before we start. But always remember that you can come back to the breath. The 3 breaths. I'm a bit congested today, but the 3 breaths of breathing into the diaphragm, ballooning the diaphragm, pushing the diaphragm out, sighing it out. Taking another deep breath in, sighing it out. And one more time. And this diaphragmatic breath that is just below your breath line, you know, it feels like your tummy is bloating, but it's actually your diaphragm, which is the muscle underneath your lungs. And it's, you know, this really is your solar plexus area. This really is where the diaphragm is, your navel, your stomach, a lot of your internal organs. So, you know, there's a lot of messaging coming from here, a lot of messaging. It's your central line. It's the central line of the Sushumna. When you think about Kundalini energy, we have our left and our right sides of our body, the feminine and the masculine, the Ida and the Pingala, and then we have this central line of the Sushumna, and the Sushumna is the balance. So where we saw those scales about the nervous system, it's also in the balance in the body, straight down the center, and we're always trying to balance the feminine, the masculine, the sympathetic, the parasympathetic, reaction versus response, boundaries versus no boundaries, people pleasing or being in our own power, limiting beliefs. You know, unpack those limiting beliefs a bit further, write them down, think about what are those things that hold you back. And our limiting beliefs can really pull us down, right? Pull us down one way or the other. Yeah, we don't feel like we can move forward in balance. So everything is about balance. Everything is about those scales. Everything is about the central line, especially this power center that gives you the strength to move forward in your life. So thank you for joining me. I hope that's been useful. Please reach out if you need support or to unpack everything that you've written in your workbook. And I will see you either in a group session or a one-to-one session. Have a beautiful day, evening, wherever you are. Sat Nam.